Hey guys, welcome back to Echoes of Experience. Um, I had a thought today as I am currently trying to get through a bit of a tough time myself. Um, and it just kind of sparked a thought today. So I want to talk about it. Um, what do you do when you get into, because everyone deals with it, when you get into a long period of just straight up sadness, or you're just angry at the world? Are you the type to kind of isolate yourself, or are you the type to take it out on other people? What do you do? Because I've been both of those, and I can tell you, especially as an adult, I have just isolated whenever I get into these depressive episodes, and um, just kind of going down a dark road of thoughts. I normally just isolate myself. I don't I don't get on social media. I don't well, I might get on social media, but I don't post anything. Um I don't really talk to people unless like my dad or my sister calls me. That's it. Those are the only two people that I normally talk to in those episodes, and I'm really trying to break that pattern. Um it's a little difficult. You know what I mean? It's difficult as a habitual self isolator um, in rough times, and it's not like I'm running away. It's not like I don't want to talk to people genuinely anyway. It's one of those things where um, I feel like I'm pretty good at giving people advice and helping out in that regard, but when it comes to taking my own advice, I'm fucking terrible at it. Um, don't mind my voice. I was doing a lot of screaming today. Not yelling, but screaming. So I have tried a lot to, especially recently, to not allow myself to isolate, and because every single time it never fails. Every single time I've ever isolated like that, it just gets a million times worse. People say it gets worse. For me, it gets a million times worse. And like, I don't have any kind of um, diagnosed issues other than ADHD. That's it. Um, I'm sure there's something there, and I know I've gone through a lot of shit um, in my life, but for me, it just gets way worse. So I can imagine that for other people, especially people who struggle a little more and have diagnosed issues like depression or maybe BPD, stuff like that. I can imagine it's so much worse. So, what do you do? Do you get on social media and um, kind of make these sad posts? Do you reach out to people? Do you self isolate? Like, what is something that you do? Um, and I'm curious because for me it's been years and years and years. When I was younger, I would take it out on people who had nothing to do with the situation. Um, and I don't do that anymore. I don't allow myself to do that anymore because those people don't have anything to do with the situation. Those people don't deserve to have my shit thrown at them when they didn't do anything at all to cause it. They were just they just so happened to be in the crossfire, you know. Um, but that doesn't logically make any fucking sense because they didn't do anything, you know. So I don't allow myself to do that anymore, and I'm trying really fucking hard to not isolate and make that problem explode. because if I let it, it will. And I'm trying really fucking hard to not do that. And I'm not going to go into a sob story. I'm not going to go into this is what's wrong. Shit just kind of sucks right now, but that's life, isn't it? Shit just kind of sucks sometimes, but it's okay. We'll make it through. It'll be fine. I just was really curious, like, what do people who may not have the tools that I have or learned the lessons that I've learned, or even better, people who have learned different lessons and have a different set of knowledge than I do, or even know something that could work better. Because what I usually do nowadays is I just go on to live my normal day to day and try not to let um, my brain being an asshole stop me from doing what I do on a daily basis. Because I like to hang out with my friends. You know, I like to do this. I like to make money. You know what I mean? Like it, and I'm not rich by any means, but I like to make money. Um, but I find myself in these moments almost shutting down. Like I don't want to talk about my feelings ever. Um, there's very few people in the world that I've ever met that I will divulge my feelings to, and we don't talk all the time. And even when we do, it's usually not about our feelings. But there are very few people who get to see that side of me. There's hardly anybody in the world that I do or will ever trust with that kind of information, that kind of vulnerability, because I'm never the vulnerable type, and I'm never the type to show weakness to people that I just run into day to day or work with, or if I'm out in public, like nobody gets to see that. There's very few people who have seen that, um, except for my teenage years, maybe. But as an adult, there's very few people who have ever seen that before. Um, and there's there's probably some things I need to work on there, but you know, I don't like the thought of being a vulnerable person and breaking down in front of someone. I fucking hate it. Um, but I also know that you can't go on forever like that. You cannot forever be the stoic, um, I guess, strong figure that you would like to be. Like it just doesn't work that way. Um, so I'm trying to get to a point where talking about my feelings doesn't make me uncomfortable. It what makes me uncomfortable is the people I'm talking to. Because there have been many times in my life where I tell someone about my feelings and I just kind of, I guess, dump on them because I feel like I can trust that person, and then it gets held against me or thrown in my face or, you know, whatever. And I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not allowing someone to throw my own emotions in my face. I've been mocked for my emotions as an adult. I've been literally mocked for my emotions. Um, I was trying to be communicative in a certain situation, and I got berated and mocked, and it lasted for like a fucking day and a half, if you can believe it. Um, so I don't see a point. if you're not somebody I would trust with my life, and there's not many people out there, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of other people, um, especially people who have had similar experiences that I have, or if you think in a similar way that I do, I'm sure there's tons of you out there who, especially men, who aren't comfortable, we'll say, with talking like that. And it's either because it's been thrown in your face or you don't fucking know how to articulate. And if you don't know how to articulate, that's okay. That's something that can be worked on. If you've had it thrown in your face, that fucking sucks. And I relate to you. I'm sorry that that's happened to you. I've been both of those. I've been both of those people, but as an adult, it's just hard for me to trust anybody with the way that I feel. So I don't do it. I don't divulge that information to anybody because why would I? Because every single time I've ever done that, never fails. Every single time I've ever done that with mostly women, it's mostly women, minus a few. There have been a few women who I've gotten deep with, and it's never been thrown in my face, but um, there's quite a few that have done it, and it doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? So I'm sure there's a bunch of us out there, and I'm sure it's the same way for women too, who have tried to open up to their friends, and it gets thrown in their face, or they get made fun of, or something. I'm sure that sucks too. If it's anything like I've just talked about, I know that sucks. Um, so with all that in mind, what do you realistically do when you have we'll call it a month, because it's not exactly measurable. It kind of comes and goes for people, or it stays around all the time, or whatever. So we'll say a month. Um, Say you have a month of just a real bad depressive episode, right? It's just one long TV episode of depression, right? What do you do? Do you talk to people? Do you isolate? What do you do? I'm genuinely curious. I want to know what other people do. Um, because I've never really learned one how to. I didn't learn until well into adulthood. Well, I'm 25, but I didn't learn until later than I would have liked to how to cope with those emotions, let alone um, how to not allow myself to let it affect my outside life. Like my friends, family, jobs, whatever. I've been in a pattern over the last few years, where it'll get really bad. It'll get really dark. I don't hurt myself, but it'll get really dark, and I will usually shut down, and I don't talk to people. I respond to very few people who message me. I take very few phone calls unless they have to do with work. Whatever the case may be, I isolate, and I write lyrics. And writing lyrics, like, yeah, it can be helpful, but it's not it's sometimes it's not enough, and it doesn't prevent me from not allowing the the rough time. We said month. The rough time that I'm going through that month, uh it doesn't prevent me during that time to um not fuck up everything else around me. I will watch everything else burn around me, and be stuck in my own little world trying to figure out what the fuck I need to do. And um, now, since I'm dealing with something like this now, I'm doing my best, and I have not done super well, but we're working on it, to not isolate and to not just cut people off because I'm in a shitty mood, or feeling shitty about the world, or whatever the case may be, because it's always different. Like I could be, it could be me, it could be the world, it could be the situation that I have found myself in, whatever, and it'll fuck with me because it's something that I can't solve in that moment. And so used to be I'd isolate and just fucking brainstorm, I guess, while wallowing in my own fucking sadness or anger. And I would usually drink a lot. And I'm fucking refusing to allow myself to do that again, because that turns into a very unhealthy cycle. I would know I've done it many times just over the last 5 years. I've done it a lot. Um, Especially if you're throwing drinking in there, because if I'm in that kind of state, I am not a happy drunk. I am just mad. Unless I'm like with people and we're just all having a good time, I'm just fucking mad, dude. Or maybe I'll just go into a depression deeper. I mean, alcohol is a depressant, so that would make sense, right? Um, so it just turns into a really bad cycle, and I feel like a lot of people have done that very same thing. I feel like a lot of people throw drinking in the mix and shit just gets way worse. You know what I mean? Because that's how I used to cope with my problems. That's how I would just drink. Or whenever I was younger, I would smoke a lot of weed. I would smoke way too much weed. And when I say way too much weed, I was not making enough money to smoke as much weed as I was smoking and live. Just wasn't fucking plausible. So I'm just kind of curious what people are doing to get through that without causing any kind of damage to themselves or the people around them, whether that be physical or emotional. I just want to know. Um, and if you are still stuck in the negative cycle, I would like to hear that too, because I can do a whole other video on breaking that cycle. Because that, I feel like that isn't really talked about, or if it is, I don't fucking know about it, because it's hard to do, but it can be done. It's just a matter of not motivation, but discipline. Any of you who have been here and watched these videos will know that there's a video that I did about discipline versus motivation. In this particular situation, you have no motivation. You have to use discipline, and that video kind of covers that. But I don't think I went into the whole depressive aspect of. I don't know. I'll have to watch that fucking video or something. Because I don't feel like I covered that. If I didn't, we can cover that in another fucking video. Maybe tomorrow. I don't know. Um, so that's gonna be tomorrow's video. I'm gonna fucking make a video about how to break that depressive cycle, or try to get yourself out of it. Because it's hard if you're stuck in it, especially for a while. I have a whole ass example I can give you for that. Um, I have a long, very long, drawn out time period where I was trying to do this. Um, but I find myself still having those times currently where I don't I don't necessarily get stuck, but I'm there in those spots, and I know that that's just going to happen because we're human, and that's how the brain works sometimes, unfortunately. Um, but I'm working on breaking the cycle of isolating when that happens, because that shit sucks. That isolation, I feel like, just drives people crazy. I mean, fuck, there have been times where I've isolated like that and talked to maybe two people in a span of however long, and even then it hasn't been very often, and I've just gone into a fucking dark rabbit hole. Imagine Alice in Wonderland, but like suicidal. You know what I mean? That's how that's been for me. Um, so anyway, let me know, what are your coping mechanisms for whenever you have that big rush of emotion, and what do you do to prevent those really rough times from fucking affecting other things in your life, like friendships or work, whatever. Um, I genuinely would love to see what people do, especially if you can relate to having that long period of just being in a depression. Because I know that shit sucks. I've been there. We're gonna cover that story in the next video, but I want to hear about it. Especially if you have tools that I don't have, or if you have knowledge that I don't have, whatever. I would love to hear it. So, with that being said, thanks for watching. I will be uploading another video tomorrow. Have a good night. Bye, guys.